So I started this cast drawing about 2 weeks ago, and I've spent maybe 10 hours on it so far. I didn't manage to finish it in time for this presentation, but I did manage to do like a digital paint of it to substitute what the finish might look like. Um, and much of what I'm discussing here today is almost identical to how they worked back in the École School in 19th century Paris, which was what my previous presentation was about. For reference, I'll be referring to Frank Fowler's book on drawing. Frank, of course, studied at the French school in Paris for several years. And material-wise, we're going to be using a bunch of this stuff. So some charcoal, a Conte pencil, some sandpaper to sharpen the charcoal, a kneadable eraser, and a stump. A stump is basically just a rolled up piece of paper tapered to a point, and we use that to smear the charcoal and Conte evenly across the paper. So to start off, we're going to do something called comparative measurement. It basically just means in order to get the measurement of something, we have to compare it to something else. So like the length of his head versus the width, the torso, the head compared to the torso, the leg compared to something else. We're always comparing something to something else, hence the name comparative. So it involves holding your arm straight out, and we want to measure the length of this guy's head. Once we get that measurement, we're going to go down and mark where the spot is and count how many times the head fits into the length of the figure. You can see this guy doing the same thing. So once we've got that, we'll mark the head down there, and then we'll put the rest in. And you'll notice my lines are very long and continuous. We want to do what you might call a noodle man. It's very loose and non-committal because we don't know if we have everything where it needs to be yet. We're using the charcoal here at this stage, so it's very easy to erase in case we need to. Also, when we do this, like I said, we want to keep our lines long and continuous as much as we can in a way you may not have thought about before, but I'll talk about more of this later. So since we can see the front and back of him, I put in two center lines. The center line is basically an imaginary line that goes from the pit of the neck through the sternum, down through the navel to the crotch. And we care about the center line because it helps to show the direction something is facing, and it gives us an idea of how much we're seeing of each side. So if you'll indulge me here in this rather crude drawing, to give an example of what a center line is, imagine we see the face straight on. We're seeing both sides equally, but as the face turns, the center line we're seeing less and less of it until we become completely side on. And if it continues to turn, we start to see the back center line until, of course, that one is completely straight on to us. So that really helps to show direction and orientation of stuff that is symmetrical. So after we're happy with the general placement of stuff, we can begin refining what we have and start carving in, going from general to specific, but still keeping in mind that this idea of connecting things. And this here is what I would call like the final stretch. This is where most of your time will probably be spent. This here is called a stump patch. It's basically just the Conte drawn in, and then you dip in the stump, kind of like a paintbrush, and then you just use it to paint in halftones and shadow masses. Here you can see I used the charcoal to get a general placement of the charcoal, and then I used the stump to smear it across the paper to even it out. So to simplify the idea of halftones, we can think of them as simply as a series of planes, and the degrees to which they turn away from the light will determine how dark they get. So let's say we have these two values here. This is our light and this is our shadow. If I were to get a value in between these, I would get this one. And if I would get a value in between these two, I'd get something like this. Likewise here, if I were to divide these up, I get something like this. So we're going from different levels of resolution where we're starting rather crudely, much like this guy was here. So we're starting rather crudely, and then we're slowly adding geometry, slowly adding form, slowly adding values to create something more round and realistic. And lastly, I'd just like to mention that if you are interested in learning to draw like this, you can head over to Melbourne Drawing Club, where my friend Nathan is offering private mentorship at his studio to anyone regardless of their skill level. So yeah, definitely reach out if you're interested. Cheers, and thanks for watching.